So I think the next subject was one we were going to throw into your court, and Kenny's in the room. But Kenny has had lots of candid, open conversations with us about this topic, so you don't have to be worried about hurting his feelings. We just need some direction from the board. We obviously shared with you several months ago the proposals we received for continuing what we're doing, but also from an outside provider that was wanting to convert the facility over to a sports-focused. Obviously, that came with some substantial capital improvements, which might be problematic at this time. But we just need some direction with this agreement going to expire, I think, in June of 2025. We need to know from the board which path we need to go down as far as the future of the arena.
The contract that expires, how long is that contract? Was it 2 years, 4 years?
It's been 20 plus years, right? It's been renewed. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was, yeah. How often does it get renewed? As much as we want it? 5 years?
5-year terms. Okay. Yeah.
And that was with formerly SMG. They changed their name.
They're changing their name again, I believe, or maybe changing their name again.
G, where you get another little yes. Well, there is a hideout pinned on dates when he's soon all gone. And the good. What area?
With that, if we were to contract, or I guess renew a contract for 5 years, would any of that affect? Would any of this changeover affect that? Not that we know of right now. That change is, the purchase was just announced in maybe November, and until we get to regulatory approval, we don't have any reason to think so at this time. So there was no discussions about changing anything major. I mean, I know we've talked about this a number of times, and and I guess had a couple different proposals, or one. I guess it was just one. And honestly, since we didn't get much, it was put out. I guess not for bid, but what would be the formal name that would be?
Yeah, we did a request for proposals, RFP. Yeah.
Okay, and we only got one. So I mean, and I really didn't feel comfortable with that. So I'm happy to leave it as is.
Hey, this is sort of impromptu here. Well, based on previous in revenue, since it's safe, so the last 4 or 5 years, the cost to continue to go up. Or what does a P make solution to do that?
So the direction we've been heading for the last, I hesitate to say 20 years, but the last 7 or 8 years, interrupted by the pandemic, was to maximize use days, maximize facility usage, maximize revenues. We have about exhausted that. You get down to it, the arena building, the event center building are the two really significant revenue generators, profit generators. Gold Hall, Cabarrus Room really don't contribute that much. We are 52 weekends a year. Of those, 5 are not usable because of holidays, Memorial Day, New Year's that weekend, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Independence Day. Puts us at 47 weeks a year. Back out another 4 weeks for Cabarrus County Fair, puts us 42, 43 weekends a year. We are currently full for 18 months at least on a recurring basis on those weekends with events that are making a respectable profit. We have seen the last 3 years, we have to budget because of the speculative nature of what we're doing. We're trying to forecast events that will show up maybe 18 months from now and what revenue and profit looks like. We have budgeted at the same level we are now for several years. What we've seen is actual end-of-year actuals are dropping. This year, I think we're going to be in the 350, 375,000 range. Last year was, going from memory, 400,000, 420. The last 3 years have been the best we've ever seen. Expenses are continuing to rise. Expenses rise quicker than revenues have. Revenues trail, but we are starting to see some change. We just don't have much weekend room to do anything now. We could change the focus. It would require pulling some dates that are currently on our calendar out, not renewing those contracts if it's a repeat event, or taking the chance that we can find another event to put in that space on the calendar. And it would be us taking the chance to do that. We may be able to put on an event that does much, much better. We may not. That's a little bit of a speculation that we would have to do, and I don't know what the tolerance is for taking that chance.
So the sheltering or the frame term within the air, a lot of those are on 5 date. With some, and correct me if I'm wrong, but not a lot of dates in their rental. Are those 5 date more valuable to somebody else in that way? Days you're already booked, or
those rates have gone up. We are, in the last 3 years, just about everyone has gone up at least 50% on base rental rates. Ancillary revenue streams are way up. There are very few, and our event turnover is about 30% every year. There are a few legacy events that, like today, for instance, we have a gun show in the front half of the event center. We have a dance cheer competition in the arena in the back half of the event center. Most of those legacy events, the low revenue, poorer performing events, really are companion events that we stick in with higher performing events just to make use of the space, just to get that extra revenue.
14 minutes, and on break even.
No, I looked the other day, and if you take all of our events, 175 a year, including the government functions, the local events we do, we see, I think the number was about a $18,000 event average profit. All 175 events. I can't tell you what that is if you discount the at cost events.
This is sort of an impromptu level history. You guys don't need to get this. Well, are we making it in that?
We are. Not a dent that I'm comfortable budgeting $400,000 as opposed to $700,000 because of we are trying to project 18 months into the future for events, and events fail for one reason or another. The promoter goes out of business. They change business model. Venue's not right for them. Operating wise, we have come down consistently every year. We're about, I think we're going to be about 350, 375 this year. We've been at that level the last 3 years. You go back before the pandemic, and we were consistently at the 600, 650 level.
And I think the other way to say it is, from a budgetary perspective, you're not seeing that improvement. That number is staying static at an elevated number. Year-end results are better, but we've already budgeted that money. It's committed to the arena. It can't be allocated elsewhere or reduced from the budget. And we've absorbed
utility increases, all the operating expenses. We've absorbed those every year.
So, if the problem is, I'm assuming is we'd have to make capital improvements to have weekly event. I mean, things during the week. Is that correct? Probably.
Yeah, depending on the event. The biggest problem is infrastructure around the arena. If there was something like a hotel close to us, it would dramatically change what we do. It would be we could fill a hotel probably 3/4 of the year on weekends. Right now, during the week, that hotel would help us do business. There may be a chance with some investment to change the events we try to attract, Convention and Visitors Bureau try to attract, that may have broader economic impact, but operationally, I don't know that they make a tremendous difference.
I guess one of the questions I would have, and this is probably not a fair question to ask you, because the opposing or the other proposal that we had was very, very different from a sports facility standpoint. But I guess, right now, if I were going to have a business conference of some sort, then I could have it in the ballroom space at the Embassy Suites and stay in the same hotel, and that would make a lot more sense for my folks that were participating. But if I were having a sporting event and I were having a athletic tournament, maybe I would be, you can't do that at exit 49. So maybe I would be willing to do it at the arena and then have to drive some distance to get back to a hotel room. Does that make sense?
I think you captured that exactly right.
Yeah.
There are certain things that happen at exit 49 and a few other places that we just don't have that luxury of being able to offer, that is more conducive to midweek business conventions, meetings, that sort of thing.
I mean, it's kind of like when I was in the retail business, I used to say all the time, I can't compete with Kmart. If they sell it at Kmart, I don't need to be selling it, because they're going to beat me every time. And it's kind of the same thing, you competing for conferences and business meetings and other kind of things along those lines.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are other things that's tough for the facility to compete at. Concerts is one of them. We're dominated by the Charlotte market. There's 20-some venues closer to the center of downtown Charlotte than we are, of similar size or greater. And if I'm the concert promoter, where's the smart money? Is it the density of the population closest to Charlotte, or is it a little farther out? That's business decisions they have to weigh. We have made some headway very recently with 2 concert promoters that I hope, nothing's materialized yet, but we're having some significant conversations for, I'd like to say 2 to 4 concerts in the next year, but again, nothing is concrete. And that business is not necessarily more lucrative than what we do now. It's just a different event.
Right. And so you have if somebody is there and they want to go out for a burger at lunch, there's this pretty good distance either direction to get to that. Although maybe that helps your concession sales on site. I mean, you guys do a great job on the food service piece.
It is. We have to send them 3 miles one direction or another, either to intersection of Highway 49 and 601, or to Mount Pleasant, or back to Union Street. And it does, a day like today, with cheerleading competition and gun show and dance show going on. Yeah, that helps our concessions revenue, and we've pushed those concession prices probably as high as we can push them and feel decent about it. we could do some of the things that you see PNC Pavilion, Spectrum Center downtown, where you're $25 for a hot dog, French fries, and a Coke. But I don't think that's where we want to be in Cabarrus County right now.
Right.
Not with Tubman,
Exactly right.
I guess the other and I think I asked this question before, and maybe that was included, is we have a lot of community events out there, and everybody in this room has participated in a lot of them, whether it be our quarterly summit meetings, our extension service events that happen out there, our youth day that the youth commissioners and staff. I mean, there's a lot of them, and I've been approached by people from other counties asking, why do we not have an ag center in Cabarrus County? And part of I said, well, good point. We do have the arena that's available, and certainly in conjunction with the fair, a lot of those agricultural type activities, and those in other counties, I mean, I'm sure those are zero revenue producers. It's strictly an expense thing. So we kind of have both.
Have the capability of both, for sure. And I would say those ag centers may be a quality of life enhancement for that community.
Yeah, I guess I keep looking over at Tracy. She might could speak to the ag center piece of that. I mean, and that's what we're talking. We're exploring how can we best utilize that facility and best take care of taxpayer expense on it.
We found it hard as the facility was built, as it was envisioned, as I understand it, 25 years ago now, to have a significant agriculture component. A lot of the stall panels, tie panels, things that you need to put those type of events on never were in place. And that having to go rent that now, in addition to dirt, in addition to the cleanup expense that goes with moving dirt in and out, makes those types of events prohibitively expensive as we are now. That almost takes a wholesale change in what you're doing. Dirt events do not work well close to other events. It takes a while for turnover for that to happen.
It's great for the fair. Perfect. I mean, based on what I know, but it's what to do with it the rest of the year to make it.
Definitely a lot of opportunities to add, like extension. There's definitely a lot of opportunities to add different events out at the arena. There's a need in the community for a place for livestock shows and youth-related events to where we can bring in more than what is just out at some of our school facilities. Most of those kinds of things we work on a state and district level, so a lot of the extension programs end up going to Union County and other places that have a much larger pavilion, and it's a pavilion that is that way all the time. So it has the footing and it has the bedding and all the panels in place, and it's very mobile and ready to go, to where at the arena we would have to bring all that stuff in because next week we have a cheer competition. And so, Union County is the most recent one. Stanley County is building their new facility as well, that they have a kind of back over in the corner where we could add a pavilion of such that would have a permanent footing and a permanent bedding and those kinds of things out there that would definitely be able to add, some more things to that. And it obviously would take a lot of planning to put that all together, to be thinking about what we could be bringing in. And, during the summer, that's a lot of day things that we could happen throughout the week to bring those kinds of things in. But also bringing in, opportunities for just the farming community and the ag community to come together around different things. And we've had a lot of calls recently about just being able to access equipment that, lay people would not have hanging around in their backyard, larger pieces of equipment that they want to rent and store and those kind of things, which could be revenue drivers that on our current location, right down here, we don't really have a lot of storage space to put extra, equipment or things like that where people are going to be coming and borrowing them and taking them home, using them and bringing them back. But that could be something that we could add, tangentially to what we're doing out in the ag community, out in that area, which would reach 2/3 of our producers, because obviously the majority of our producers are on that side of the county, but we also have producers on the northwest side of the community as well, and then down into Midland. So it's kind of the direction of the board and how they want to take it.
So the question I would ask about those other activities that you talked about in Union County, Stanley County, are those revenue producers? Are those break-even events? Or those expenses that those counties are making those expenses to serve their constituents?
I think it's a combination of all three. You can have our local 4-H groups that are coming with our local FFA groups that are coming and doing a district thing where they're maybe coming in and going to dinner, and we can, help with revenue revenue generation because of food and those kinds of things that they're coming in for the day. But you could also, if the event facility was appropriate for that event, you can get into big stuff where they're bringing in regional and national competitions that are horses and other livestock and other events, where you're bringing in the Dairy Goat Association is doing their tour. They go around to a bunch of different shows and collect it along the way. So when they come around and do those kinds of things, it could be a revenue generating, because that would be an outside facility, not an internal facility where we could charge that full price for an outside entity to use that space. And honestly, around here, even when we host our local district horse shows, we go to Lake Waccamaw because that is our closest place where we can go to host a horse show for the weekend. And so there's just really not a good place to use that things. But again, it would take a lot of infrastructure changes to make that happen.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we can either be a dedicated agricultural facility that specializes and has the equipment to put on those kind of events, or we can focus on recreational, athletic things, or we can stay like we are, but we can't be all things to all people.
I think for the land use, and I don't know how much of the land around the arena is available for additional building infrastructure, because some of the additional stuff, but then you're going to take up parking lots and those kinds of things, and I'm not it. So I don't really know how to speak to that.
Just quoted, it's the owner couldn't at the time when they decided the first thing was to move the fair out. It was the facility for the fair. And really, the event center itself was actually a rodeo type thing, first floor, and that type thing. And then I think the powers that be at the time decided, well, let's make that building as flexible and let's put a free floor in there so you use it all year round on the spring period. And then the same thing happened inside the arena as well. So I think by doing that and trying to make it as flexible as possible, it kind of hindered the agricultural community because you need to be built. It's very moving out. The dirt's not somebody with a labor to get it in and out. But if you leave it in there, you really can't have anything else. We actually had a arc on it at one time, or a plastic coating on it, but that didn't work. It was ultimately one. So over the years, the ones that were making the decisions were the ones that really don't want to make this. I don't think it turned out the way everybody thought it was going to be. It just worked. It was the project in process the entire time. In fact, we had to add the sleep and build. The building was all and as well. And maybe we need to have some sleep in there too. And we need to, I think it was all well. And then, but in the end, it doesn't make the facility as flexible as what they need to be able to really also definitely the agricultural pick up and move it. No, because what is it now? Do you bring dirt in and pull it back out?
So we had an event middle of January, covered less than half of the arena floor with dirt, and the promoter told me his expense was $30,000 for that.
How do and how did the promoter come in and say, yeah, you with that dirt in your outfit, offering you a rodeo? I'm going to make money off of it. I wouldn't make money. Okay, we say, oh, we're going to supply the dirt. Well, then we're not right there. We get amber and coat or 25 to 30 down. I think it used to run that one time at 9 at this out with the dirt, and now it's just from concrete. So that flat acid, that flat. But what's that? What is it? Is it going to ever be a moneymaker? If it's not, is that okay? Or you look at a redirection and you look more at the agriculture, and then what are the distances that happen that's occur in agriculture facility now?
And so if the proposal for athletic, for the other proposal we had, what were we going to have to spend to?
No, it was total. It was over 10 million, but that was a combination of, a family entertainment center and sports courts and all of those improvements that would be needed.
No, this is a different one. So we spend $10 million. How long does it take to get that back? Spend $10 million to avoid an annual deficit. And you said 350,000 was the most. I'm not smart enough to do that in my head right quick. $10 million divided by 350,000, it takes several years. And then I suspect it would be time to update the facility because we can't. It's kind of a catch-22 situation. And if we say, okay, we're going to turn it into an agricultural facility, then that means the things that you said are lacking, the permanent things, we would have to. Yeah. So who knows what the price? That's
When we did a split it and didn't just the board, what I did, and it definitely about somebody can then up the list of Ace to only to merge Hartford or to an agricultural ability or if we, I did get the time before I could do it, but it would never make money. They hope it was I think they ultimately break even, but they haven't. That but the credit it's on, and a lot of it is just for the design. It's not dark that we're always think this, think,
which is what we're still doing.
for anything, but it's not great for free.
I think this falls in the cat. I've heard it a lot recently. Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And we're not giving too many solutions. I'm talking about us. We're not providing any solutions.
I haven't thought around for that. Frank, they'll figure out what's that magic ticket. I think great. And the next year that they want to come out to do it.
And we've had outside people operating it. We've had inside staff operating it. We've tried a lot of different directions. Commissioner Shue, I'm sorry. You got your finger on it?
Well, yeah, I just, we've kicked this around a little bit. Kenny and you and I talked about this a year or so ago, 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was. Because now, how long have you been out there?
I think it'll be 22 years in.
Pretty much since inception. Pretty much since inception of the arena.
Cabarrus room was opened.
Would you say, from your experience, vast experience, that the majority of the vendors that come to the arena or to the event center are ones that's been coming year after year after year?
A few of the big events, absolutely. We do see 30% event turnover year after year.
Do you have any trouble, or do you have a waiting list for people wanting to get in?
We do.
Okay. All right. Now, the question that I had, and I mentioned this to County Manager Downs a couple of years ago. In the beginning, we had to have somebody to get it up and get it running. And we've done that. And I think before my time, we did it in-house. But I think doing it in-house 10 or 15 years ago was probably not a good move. But I think, and you and I talked about this, I said, what difference would it make to the vendor if it's a county-operated event versus an SMG event? There would be none, except it would save us several $100,000 to do it in-house. There's your break-even point, as far as I'm concerned. But, I didn't have the support that I needed, to get that change done. And I feel like that now that we've been established for all these years, these people are not all of a sudden going to quit coming because it's, oh, did you hear? Cabarrus County's operating the event center now. Well, we're not going to go. That won't be the frame of mind at all. They want to get that spot. I remember years ago, whenever I was in my business, I couldn't wait to put my exhibit at the Cabarrus County Fair. And I did all the local fairs. I couldn't wait to get my name in the hat. Well, it's the same way with these vendors here. They want to get there, and the reason they want to get there is because it draws a good crowd most of the time. Some events do a lot better than others. I realize that. But the bottom line is, though, they get business out of it, and that's just one stop along the way for these vendors. And they put it on their calendar year after year, just like I did. So, my suggestion is it's the same as it's been for the last couple of years. We need to look to moving it in-house. That's just my thoughts on it.
Do we have the staff to do that, or would we have to hire?
I think we had run some numbers a few months back. You could try to dust them off and refresh our memory, but the challenge was, if you pay the same hourly rate as what the arena is paying their staff, because of our benefits package, the cost for us to do it will be more. And that's because we have to add the almost 14% retirement contribution to that salary, and that's required by the state. So from a cost perspective, now there have been some recent changes, and that's why I say I think we can rerun the numbers, where the corporate company is pushing down some expenses here locally that are adding or inflating their budget. So we can certainly rerun it, but when we ran it a few months ago, doing it in-house would cost more than the current arrangement.
And so is that an example of just like we just talked about on contracting with a private company to build these schools? They can take advantage of a lot of opportunities that we as a government, because of state regulations, federal regulations, we must do this and we must do this, and that's why they can do it less expensively than we can do it on our own? Are those two comparable situations, you think?
Similar, yes.
Yeah.
But we
So
will
it sounds, what
rerun the
Commissioner Shue said sounds reasonable, perfectly reasonable. But it sounds like regulations prevent us from being reasonable.
We just have commitments that we have to meet that private employers do not. Most private employers at this point don't have a pension program that they have to sustain.
What are your thoughts on that? Does that make sense to you, Commissioner Shue?
Well, the thing of it is, Kenny, are you fully staffed right now at the arena?
We are. We have some part-time as needed employees. We have 13 full-time spots, and given any given time of the year, between 80 and 100 part-time as needed folks. Right now, we could we could stand to hire 10 or 12 part-time folks. But
Well,
we're
and
generally
the
okay.
point that I was trying to make is when you figure your figures, Rodney, you're figuring for full-time, 100% staffing. And there's probably not many times that you've been 100% full staff. It's just like the county, we're not all the time. We may have allocated 100 positions, but only have 70. But we allocated for 100. The revenue for those 30, I don't know if you follow what I'm saying. You're figuring for a full load for the full number of employees that he's supposed to have, but he's never going to have that. Just like the county, we're never going to have 100%. We don't have no vacancies whatsoever, unless we would put a freeze on the hiring, and then obviously that's a different scenario there. But I think we have to look at realistic numbers. We look at what Kenny's got going on out there now and use those numbers instead of what it would be if he was running 100%.
At least the deficit is getting better over the years. Does the contract end the end of this fiscal year?
June of 2025.
Oh, okay, so we have another year.
Yeah. So it either need to be extended or amended by then.
We are currently, though, somewhat hindering the ability of him to
Schedule.
go multiple shows, at grade 4 later.
Right. Well, as I said earlier, I'm fine with contracting for another 5 years, and maybe in that meantime, can have this discussion all over again. I don't think there's probably one person in this room that's not been out there for some sort of event. And I mean, I hate to see it run a deficit. Most people know my politics in there, and I absolutely hate that, but it does serve the community well. It's a nice place, nice facility. I don't want to see it shut down because, it would just, it would fall apart, go downhill. And, like I said, at least the deficit's getting better, and I think it serves the community well. So I'm fine with continuing the way it is for the time being. And then maybe, we can try to think about something else in that meantime. I know it seems like, we've had this discussion for almost a year now, and nothing's come about it. But I don't know, maybe something will come up between them.
Okay. Okay. That with you guys for now. Again, we don't need to re-out until and late next year. We fight. Yeah. So that is we're going to receive about it. If there's some other option you want us to explore during that time, but we still have 15 months or so musician mode. Let's let us know, it's CM, the Compass Center, or it's whatever. But in the end, it's supposed to be plugged along and I'll put it.
And one additional question, you talked about some of these events that come back every year. Maybe you're not charging enough. Maybe that's why they keep coming back. Is that
We maybe we've seen pushback in the last year and a half, even from those events. A good business person's going to say, "You're killing me," to get the best deal they can when they're negotiating. We have started.
That's what I always say.
Yeah, we really have started to see some pushback on our rates to the event organizers, a little bit from the guests that come.
So what are you looking at? So where do they go? And what are they debated?
Depends on the event. The good thing is the things that are really profitable for us, they don't have a whole lot of options. Some of the smaller events, there's half a dozen venues within 10 or 15 miles, but those are...
I wanted to make one last comment, and if I could, before we take our break or whatever, and that is, can we explore, Rodney, what other counties are doing that have a center similar to this? How are they contracting their events out, or are they doing it in-house? And sort of, maybe get just some of the neighboring counties to see what they're doing. Stanley Ag Center would be a good one. And
So you including ag centers, not the
well, however we can use it.
okay.
And I'm like Commissioner Meismer. I don't particularly like to see a deficit, but we've been out there for over 20 years now, and it should at the very least be a break-even venture, in my opinion. But then again, I also have to give credit for it being a excellent quality of life venue for the citizens of the county. But with it being out there as long as it has been, it's time for it to be at least at a break-even point. Maybe I don't think it'll ever be a profit, and I don't really expect that. But I think, though, that we really should work on that deficit. But if we find out what some of the neighboring counties are doing, that can give us some ideas as to what we can do to bring our deficit down.
So we can do that. Just to put a pin. So Kelly's point, I think, is a good one, which is, are you comfortable based on this conversation with, because Kenny sort of had his hands tied a bit with him booking for commitments as needed based on his judgment and their judgment of the event. I'm seeing heads nod. Because that may be a 3-year commitment, it may be a 5-year commitment, but his hands have sort of been tied as we waited to see where this was headed. And then related to that is, are you comfortable with me notifying that other party that for now we're deciding to stay the course and we'll reach out if it needs change?
I was in favor of the other party. I said that at our meeting, but with us trying to get it as lean as we can this year, I can't justify a $10 million upgrade. So it is what it is at this point. That's where I stand on it.
One thing we got to remember too is going back to the discussion that we had last time with all those community events out there, in addition to the graduations and things of that nature, would be other venues that we would then have to find to have some of these events that would end up costing us money. So
Did you all need further conversation about the public participation policy? I'm seeing. We good? We thought we were good. It was on there, and so we figured we'd make sure. So we'll take a break, and then we can come back and do the economic development policy.